Yo, what's up, MTV? My name's Danny Weiland. Welcome to my crib. No, really, my name is Danny Weiland. This is my tiny house. We are at Animas Vista Tiny Home Park in Durango, Colorado. I have been living in my tiny home since August 1st, so almost 3 months. The dimensions of my tiny home are 20 by 8 feet. So my tiny house is parked at Animas Vista. I pay about $725 a month for rent, and that includes all utilities and trash and sewer. So the exterior of the home, obviously it's not that big, so there's not that much going on, but I got my van parked on the other side, so that's like my migratory home. This is my stationary home. Pretty basic setup. So that's it for the outside. Let's take a look on the inside. Welcome to my tiny house. So the layout here is 160 square feet, and I found this tiny house from a woman 30 minutes south of Durango. She had an extra tiny house for sale, bought it within 48 hours of learning about it. The builder of this tiny house was an individual in Denver. It was not like a custom builder. This was just a guy who built a tiny house for his niece, and then she sold it to the individual that I bought it from. So starting here in the living room and the kitchen are kind of the same space. In a tiny house, everything blends, but this is kind of like my cozy relax area. The couch pulls out into kind of a sofa bed, throw a bunch of blankets on it and some books, and you've got yourself a nice evening. This is my closet. I don't have a lot of shirts, and so pretty much all the hanging shirts I own can literally fit on this tiny rack. These pull-out cubbies are literally all the clothes I own in the world. And then I have my costume drawer, because you gotta have costumes. Life gets hard, you gotta be fun. This is the shoe rack. Apparently I own a lot of shoes. I realized the other day when I was trying to find more space for them. This is kind of the coat rack and gear rack for things that I'm using every day. So running packs, miscellaneous bags I just kind of hang up here. This little space right here, like this is like the area that I occupy the most for stretching, doing yoga, eating food. Like I just kind of sit in the middle of this room, which seems kind of weird, but it works for me. You just have to be flexible and creative. So on this side of the house, we have the staircase. A lot of tiny homes, you'll see either a vertical ladder to the loft or kind of box steps where you can store things underneath. That is super functional as far as conserving space. My staircase is really more aesthetic. So as we transition into the kitchen, there's this cool little feature I want to show you. I've mentioned before, I tend to eat on the floor, but if you're not much of a floor eater, what you can do is you take this, and now you have a little nook where you can eat. You just need a stool, and then you got some more storage underneath. So this is a super cool functional feature of the home. I haven't really used it yet, just because I just haven't used it yet. Once I find some stools that I can store, I will definitely utilize this more in the winter. So, but yeah, so that's, I guess that's the dinner table. Originally, I'm from Chicago. Was in Denver for about 10 years. Finally got fed up with the city again and moved back to the mountains in Durango. But really everything in my extracurriculars at this point in my life is revolving around movement outside. There's just so much to do in these towns. You just have to procure the gear first. I'm a structural body worker, so massage therapy. I do that 2 days a week, and then I run a very, very small painting business, which is just me and one other person, and we do residential interior and exterior house paints. So I came from a construction background in Denver. We were doing a lot of remodel work and got to Durango, and there was just such a huge demand for skilled labor, specifically painting. There's a lot of contractors here, but there's not a lot of good painters. 2019, I was dating a girl and I started to kind of get exposure to the tiny house movement, and I was just like enthralled with it. Love the idea of living within your means, which is something that a lot of people talk about, but not a lot of people do, especially in America. Moved to Durango in 2021, and the housing situation in Durango, like any mountain town, is just atrocious. You've got overpriced housing. A lot of the landlords here can be pretty slumlordish. And so you're not in a position of power in your housing situation. And that's like one of the most important things to human health, is like having stable housing, feeling safe physically and emotionally in your space. And I didn't really have that in Durango. And so I kept getting further and further interested into the alternative housing movement. Eventually what led to it is the relationship I was in Durango ended after 3.5 years. I moved into my van for 2 weeks in March, and it was absolutely freezing. It was snowing half the time, and my van's not like a super bougie van. It's like kind of a basic Econoline van. But I was able to do all the things I needed to do. I was still able to go to work every day and eat and exercise, and that was the moment it kind of clicked. I got a rental after that for 2 months, and the landlord was so crazy. So within a 48-hour period, I canceled the lease, signed a new lease, bought a tiny house, and moved it a week later. And I've been here since August 1st, and it's definitely been a change. And there's some, I wouldn't say growing pains, but just learning curves of having such a small space. As we come into the kitchen, you've got the sink. We've got a nice double sink feature. This tiny house does not have a dishwasher, so it's nice to have another side of the sink where I can dry my dishes and you don't dump water all over the counter. Kitchen, we've got some sliding cabinets here and then the pull-out cabinets underneath. I don't have that much stuff, so I haven't really utilized all of this space. More sliding drawers here. There's a decent amount of counter space here with this convection oven, so I get to, prep a lot of my food and not feel like super claustrophobic. I do have a toaster oven. I would love at some point to have an actual inset oven, but to be continued in the future. Here's my fridge. It's not the biggest fridge, but it holds everything that I need, and so it works. In a perfect world, I think the fridge would come up to the bottom of this and there'd be a built-in oven, but maybe one day when I got some money to throw at it. I mean, with the smaller kitchen, obviously, I'm not going to host dinner parties for, more than one person, but when it's just you cooking for yourself, this is enough space. I haven't run into one issue yet with space, and so I really can't complain about that. Most of my food prep and cutting vegetables and everything happens in this space over here. I could even put all of this into a cabinet so that I have even more space, but it hasn't become an issue yet, and so I haven't really worried about it. Moving to the end of the house is the bathroom shower. There's not a ton of room in here, but there's enough. Pretty small vanity and sink. Again, it's just me in here, so I have kind of my travel kit here that if I need to leave town for something is kind of already set up, but I can also use it as storage for toiletries. You'll see there's a guitar in the corner of my toilet. I don't use that while I'm using the toilet. It just hasn't found a better home yet. And this is one area of the house where it can't really be disturbed. So it's kind of weird when you go into a bathroom and there's toothpaste, toothbrush, electric guitar. It's like, what is he doing in here? I keep my brooms and mops in this corner because it's just, again, I don't want to have hanging brooms in a space that is really visually pleasing to me. I'd rather just dump it in the one room where no one can see it and you can close the door. So here's my shower. It needs to be cleaned. The reality of this It's a nice shower and the water gets really hot. After work every day, I normally just go to the hot springs, which is like 8 miles up the road. So it takes me 7 minutes to get there, and I soak for an hour and then I shower there. So last space I want to show you is the bedroom. So come back and we're going to go upstairs and we're going to show you where all the sleep happens. So this is my bedroom loft. You can't feel it because you're watching a video, but it's a lot warmer up here because the heat rises. Pretty self-explanatory space. I've got a queen size bed, a pseudo bookshelf that's been sort of accumulating up here. I just bring books up and read in bed, and then I'm just sort of acquiring this collection. So I think I'm actually going to build a bookshelf for up here across the wall because it just is kind of naturally happening. Cool little window here for ventilation. And if you look over here, there's a little crack where the bed meets the wall. And so I store books here that are kind of like being read every night. It's not much, but it feels really nice up here. It's tall enough to sit up, which is huge. When I'm camping in my camper van, I can't sit up all the way without hitting my head. And so like when you're a little kid and you build a fort somewhere up high and you're like, oh, this is so cool. It's way better up here. The only downside of sleeping in a loft is, again, if you have to wake up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom, you just have to climb down from the loft. Thankfully, my situation makes it pretty easy and safe to do that. But if I had a ladder, I'd be really bummed out. The transition itself was pretty exciting. There's just that moment of kind of freedom from the system. I don't have to throw away money anymore into, $1,600 a month to rent that you're never going to see again. So like maybe $49K for your entire house. A lot of my friends have cars that are more expensive than my entire house, so it puts it in perspective. I went through the bank of dad. I had Wells Fargo lined up and they were going to give me a personal loan for $50,000, but with obviously a higher interest rate. So my dad loaned me the money and then we just went from there. So there's no interest paying dad back. The alternative movement, it sounds like awesome. Oh yeah, tiny house, affordable. You also have to have the money to buy the tiny house. And so, if you don't have that initial money because you're renting, there can be some friction to getting to that step. I think I would have been fine financing it. And so if I didn't have that parental option, that's what I would have done. I borrowed $35,000. And my last apartment, I was paying $1,600. So you're talking 2 years and you've paid off your entire investment. My rent is $700 a month. And so the financial strain is so much lower that when I go to work now, it's with the understanding that I'm making money that I get to keep. And that is so empowering. It's a place that I haven't really been for the majority of my adult life. It's always been like, I'm just scraping by, I'm just gonna make rent and I might have like a little bit of money left over to do some personal stuff, but it has alleviated an enormous amount of financial strain, which has improved my mental health quite a bit. Being ADHD my whole life and having been on medication as a kid and having had a really hard time managing a lot of moving parts, having a smaller space that's more simplified, it's a simpler template for my brain. So there's not as much to keep track of, there's not as much to lose, there's not as much to clean and worry about, and so it really frees up my mental bandwidth to a place where I can enjoy my life more. I can have more time to exercise, I can have more time to go to the hot springs and ski and socialize with friends, and it's like, I don't have to do a ton of laundry, I don't have to go home and clean an entire house. It takes like 10 minutes to clean this whole house. And it's pretty wild. Living here at Animas Vista is probably the coolest place I've lived, hands down, in Durango, and really probably anywhere as an adult. Just because of the proximity to nature, like Animas Mountain is right behind me. That's my favorite place to run in town. The river is literally half a block down the street. There's nature preserves within half a mile in two directions. My office is 2 blocks that way. My girlfriend is 1 block that way. Like, I am in the most central location for the things that I like to do. And Alex and Molly, the owners, they're just so cool. They really have the vision of, let's create community for the people who are kind of the fabric of Durango, like the workers, the people who are running the tours, the people who are painting the houses. They're really mindful of who they're bringing in to the community, which I really appreciate. So if you look at our culture, there's definitely a conditioning from society that you will be happier when you get this. You'll be happier when you get the car. You'll be happier when you get the house. Like TV and marketing, it's all geared toward more. But the irony that I've discovered, and I think a lot of other people who are living a more minimalist lifestyle have probably experienced, is like the real freedom spiritually isn't just having less stuff. Just having less worry up here, and more openness, and just freedom to be present in your life.
Thank you for watching our video and for stopping by Tiny House Expedition. I'm Alexis.
And I'm Christian. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And for more tiny home tours and stories, click the videos below.
And join us on Instagram for bonus content,
including face-to-face conversations with us. We hope to see you there.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.